Well, I want to thank Gino the Hitman for writing that piece for me for Fez Night. And did a great video where he took some of my Mr. B Beat Poet and mixed that in there. And, excuse me. And so, thank you. Thank you, Gino. All right. Greetings, fellow. Oh, donning the Fez. Greetings, fellow citizens. This is Citizen Kong. Wait, let me start over. Take two. I had to fire everybody. Damn crew, studio, they can't do anything right. All right. Time for donning the Fez. Greetings, fellow citizens. This is Citizen Kong, and welcome to another Fez Night. Tonight's Fez Night should be called the Lone Fez. All right, well, I have my cuppa, I took my pills, and I'm ready to go. All right. Look at my little chicken scratching notes here. So, first off, I want to give a shout out to Real Man. Real Man is at 1 trillion now, Real Man, who is taking responsibility proudly, made a couple videos about taking down Nevishno's channel for leaving racist comments. Now, Real Man and I disagree on a lot of things. But one thing we both agree on is the ugliness of racism. And I've seen racism in my life. I've even had, people of color other than white being picked on by white people, or slurs about them. But I've seen it in reverse too. I've seen Hispanics, Mexicans who act racist towards white. Now, I'm half Mexican, but I don't look it. And my friend, I used to call him Mexican Tony. It was Tony. I knew him since 2nd grade. And when he got married, I went to his bachelor party. And I was the only white guy there. And so I was getting a stink eye by some people. So, racism exists in all groups, A lot of white racists say, well, blacks are more racist about whites than we are. Oh, come on. Anyway, the whites were in charge for a really long time, so, they used to call it the white man's burden and noblesse oblige and things like that. Well, I think we've gone beyond that, but there's still, I don't know. I've heard some people say, well, I don't owe them anything. My ancestors didn't own slaves. How do you know? If you go back far enough to ancient Egypt or something, you never know. So, yeah. So, hey, cheers to Real Man. Cheers. I myself, yeah, I'm kind of glad to see that channel go. I mean, of course, he never really goes away. He's already popped up with some new channels. But that guy would just spam my page with just inane babbling. I mean, it's not even funny. It's just nonsense, with arg, what the fucks, and, he packages shit in a can and sends it into space. I mean, what is that, And so I try not to block people. At one point I was doing temporary blocks on Nevishno's. I'd say, look, you filled my page up with enough of your nonsense. You're going on a 24-hour block. Well, one time he finally got really upset with me. He said, well, you're blocked permanently. I said, okay. So I left him blocked. But then he reemerged with this new channel. And I didn't block him. Oh, man, he would just fill up my page with stuff. Oh, cheers to Gordon, who says, he lurks and finds my channel interesting. Cheers. Now, making racist slurs, it could be considered a freedom of speech issue. And I am not for shutting anybody up. In fact, I think in some cases the ACLU has defended people with a right to make racist slurs. I mean, this country in some ways is still free in many ways. And I know that in Germany and other parts of Europe, you can get thrown in jail if you are a Holocaust denier. Well, here in the United States, you can deny that it happened all you want. I mean, you're an idiot, but, you know, but in this country, you don't get thrown in jail for being an idiot. And but we're on YouTube, okay? And YouTube has community guidelines. And we're, you know, basically, I know Gordon has said this, I mean, we're here on their dime, you know? And so, you know, it's sort of like we're a guest in their home, and there's guidelines, and if you don't follow those guidelines, you can get your channel shut down. A lot of people try to skirt that by using sock accounts, hiding behind it. I woke up this morning, I left a comment on Real Man's video where he's talking about taking down Nebish's channel, and Andy, the duck quacks back, who I've told, don't talk to me. Don't follow me around, don't stalk me in the comments. Called me out and started like talking shit to me, talking smack, you know, telling me to shut up. And it just goes on and on. I'm gonna have the last word. I mean, if it kills me. Because you started this, and I'm going to finish it. Andy, you're so pathetic. You know, she's criticizing me about my looks and you know, and the way I do my Fez Night. When she will not do a video herself, she won't go on camera. She's so embarrassed about the way she looks. I mean, how dare she pick on me? And she hides behind socks. She won't use her main channel. I'm there as Citizen Kong. I'm not battling with her using a sock. You know? I know it's her. It's so obvious. Finally, after so much arguing, I mean, part of her MO is that she brings Eileen into it at some point. And it took her quite a while, but eventually she did. So, I was going to give a shout out to El Brookman for his birthday. And then it was called to my attention this morning. So, did you see that video? Eileen told me, okay? I was too busy answering Andy's hatred and vitriol. So I went and watched the video, and El Brookman, are you kidding? Is this some kind of joke? I mean, to make such a stink about people forgetting your birthday that you're ready to go running back into the arms of Timmy, somebody that I backed you up on, the guy who 5-stepped your videos, you know, filed DMCAs on him, and over a birthday thing? Look, man, on my channel, I don't announce my birthdays. I'm not expecting anything from people on my birthday. If they remember my birthday, that's very nice. But I'm not going to turn against them over that. My channel right now, and I'm honest about my age, I'm 49. I sure don't feel like it, and I don't feel like it in here. I still feel like I'm 16. But, or somebody will say you act like you're 7. Right, Andy? So, on my channel, when I have a birthday, that 49 will turn to a 50. There'll be no like, and so you know, watch my channel. Then you know I had a birthday. I don't care whether people make me a happy birthday video or not. I mean, really, are you that upset about it? I mean, really? You know, you're calling Timmy a nice guy? Timmy is not a nice guy. Timmy won't even call himself a nice guy. I mean, would a nice guy, you know, stalk me and threaten to stalk my ex-girlfriend? You know, and she and I were still talking, and, you know, we'd have breakfast together, and you know, and he's like, would a nice guy, like, I know where she eats her breakfast, I know where she does her laundry, I know where she works. I forgot whether he said the breakfast part. I know where she eats, I know where she does her laundry, I know where she works. What kind of talk is that? Would a nice guy talk like that? No. You know, I supported you on this, and I can't believe, and you know how I supported you. Really. Are you serious? Please. I mean, to make such a big stink over people forgetting your birthday, you must have been an only child, you know, where that only child with like the birthday was such a big occasion. I don't know. I don't get it. I really don't. Anyway, then you probably say, oh, it was just a joke, I was just yanking your chain. All right, well then, I was foolish enough to fall for that. Really? Oh, by the way, Monk's Castle made a great video for L. Brookman. They have a L. Brookman dummy, and Ronald Reagan is there as Little Ronnie, which L. Brookman refers to his penis as Little Ronnie, and which is very, very strange. And you know, and Ronnie's talking about FDR's running things in heaven and all that, which I think is a great idea. But I really wonder, would Ronnie be there? What, would he? Oh, well, all right. I'm going to look through the paper. You know, there's this crisis in Egypt that's escalating. It says there, right on the headlines. I know very little about what's going on with this. I probably know more about Charlie Sheen right now, and I'm embarrassed. But I do know that I've listened to interviews with a man on the street who happened to be a taxi driver. This was a couple of years ago. And one thing that I got out of this is that there's oppressing poverty there. And many of us don't really think of Egypt as being so poverty-stricken. I mean, these people are working hard and can barely survive. I mean, the majority of them. Once again, I've talked about this before. I mean, what makes a country great is to have a strong middle class. The divide between the wealthy and the poor is becoming more and more in this country. And a lot of the free market people or the GOP types and all that are like, well, if you're poor, that's your own fault. You're not working hard enough. Well, in our society, what made America great, what made it great was not having that attitude. It was the GI Bill and things like that, government helping people, that made our strong middle class. These men that came back from the war that survived were given money for education and to build a house, and created these like suburbs, the tract homes. The suburbs are a nightmare, but there's parts of San Diego where you still see this post-war housing. You know, these small, these modest homes, which is actually the best way to live. Who needs more space, you know, than they can use? Really. I mean, it's important that more people have homes than less people having homes, and all the homes being McMansions. I mean, you can disagree with me if you want. I mean, it was funny, my Balzer Harry made an analogy of the ant and the grasshopper. And usually the ant and the grasshopper is the idea that the grasshopper doesn't think about the future, and he eats up all his food, and he's not ready for winter, and he starves and dies. Whereas the ant diligently worked and put away his food and was ready for winter. Well, what's wrong with the analogy? And I get it, okay? You know, it's about the hard worker and the person who thinks about the future and the lazy spendthrift who is the grasshopper. But where this falls flat is that in reality, a better analogy of the ant and the grasshopper is that the ant isn't an individual. The ant is part of this large colony where everybody has their place and everybody has their job. In fact, I was watching a documentary on ants, and the way it is, the worker ants go out and they gather food, and they put it, some of the food they put in their bodies, and it's like semi-digested, and they carry water that way too. And so if another ant coming the other way is hungry and needs some food, the other ant is obliged to give him some food to feed him, you know, if he has something to share. If he doesn't, a selfish ant that hoards and won't give it to his fellow ant, they attack him and kill him. Bees have, you know, a similar hive mentality, but we're talking about ants here. I don't think there's any stories of bees attacking other bees, except I think the drones, they leave and they just kind of die, I guess. But ants are very industrious, but they work as a unit, and there is no ant that rides up above the rest except for the queen. I mean, there's workers, and they all have their assigned jobs, and I guess there's the warrior ants, the ants that do the fighting. And the queen, in a sense, is the one that's elevated above the rest, but her only job is to breed, really. That's it. I mean, in some cases in ant colonies, the queen, it's almost kind of nightmarish. She's attached to the inside of whatever, you know, the little hidden place underground. And she just bloats up real big. And she's like this baby factory pumping out eggs. And that's her lot in life. And the worker ants bring her food. She doesn't get to travel around. She's not free. Basically, she suffers the worst burden out of the whole colony. Yeah. Too bad we can't do that with our leaders, huh? Make them suffer the most. So let's see. So yeah, looting grows in lawless Egypt. Obama compares our economic surge to the U.S.-Soviet space race. Can Obama's Sputnik moment fly? Interesting. I don't know. I think those are two different things. I mean, with the space race, we were able to funnel our tax money into actually doing something. I think there's too much resistance from the right to funnel tax money into the economy to do anything. Yeah, I don't think it's a good comparison. Let's see. Here's the thing about how poor they are in Egypt. It says here, bread bakers are too poor to join the protests. You know, I was reading an editorial. Oh, Andy doesn't like it when I shuffle my newspaper. That's for you, Andy. Yeah, I was reading an editorial about what happened to Americans, what happened to this country. Back during the Depression, when a bunch of veterans were denied their benefits during the Hoover administration, they formed this place, a tent city in Washington, D.C. They called it Hooverville. And it was an en masse major protest. And I think these are veterans for World War I, obviously, I think. You know, that's what makes sense. And Americans protested. Americans would hit the streets and protest. But, you know, and even the young, hippie, radical generation would go to the street and protest. But what has happened to us now? In Britain, when they raise their student fees, the students hit the street and protest. The French will protest at a drop of a hat. We have protests going on here in the Middle East. But where are the real protests in the United States? We have plenty of things to protest over. And the closest thing we have to protest is where you go out and buy a gun. And somehow that makes you feel better, that you went out and bought a gun. I don't get it. All right, he was on the cover of the calendar section. James Cameron, I don't really care for him. He's the guy that did Titanic and Avatar. I saw Titanic, regrettably. Excuse me. I always have to let out a burp or two during a Fez night, right? And yeah, I'm shuffling the paper. Business. Oh, you know who's on the cover of the art and book section? John Lydon. Hey, of Sex Pistols fame. What's he up to? Music in the background, but he has stories to tell. So maybe he's come out with a book. John Lydon. I always liked that line in that movie about the Sex Pistols. I guess it starred oh, now I won't remember his name. Great character actor. Gary Oldman. And he says, I think he played Sid Vicious. And the guy who played John Lydon, what was it? Sid Vicious? Johnny Rotten. No, I got that wrong. Gary Oldman played Johnny Rotten. And I forgot who played Sid Vicious, but there's a John Lydon, also known as Sid Vicious, has this great line in the movie. He says, we're the Sex Pistols. We're not into sex. How very British. You know what? The British have this reputation with the rest of the world, and I guess the rest of Europe, that they're very like uptight about sex. But in reality, every Brit I've ever met are like the horniest guys you'll meet. But I guess they show it in a different way. Let's see what's on the image there. Oh, okay, country charm. Country music is influencing fashion. Must have something to do with that new Gwyneth Paltrow movie. Have you ever seen Gwyneth Paltrow sing? She is really good. She is an excellent singer. Yeah, has something to do with the Gwyneth Paltrow movie. Movie called Country Strong. I don't think I'll go see that. I saw a clip of her on YouTube singing in a movie about karaoke people. And boy, she was good. Really good. And the travel section. Okay, well I saved the Saturday paper because there was two things that I thought were of interest that caught my eye. Prison reforms no longer taboo for conservatives. And I'll read the first paragraph. Reduced sentences for drug crimes, more job training and rehabilitation programs for nonviolent offenders, expanded alternatives to doing hard time. What's interesting, it's always been the liberal left that is tried to push for prison reform, for, let me see if I get this word right, to reduce recidivism. You know, people returning to prison after they're released by, you know, giving them training, you know, showing them that there's a different way to live, allowing them access to books, and so they can educate them, allowing themselves to education. But the right, I remember my friend who lives in Montana was really, really happy about this Arizona lawman that was making the prisoners out. They weren't in a prison. They slept in tents. He had them sleeping in tents out in the open desert. And one of the other things was like wearing pink underwear to, like, you know, rob them of their dignity. And apparently, yeah, he kept them in line. He made them do hard labor. And I can understand, you know, a lot of people say, well, they're prisoners, they shouldn't be coddled. But there's something about, and the rest of us know this, you'll have to agree, I mean, what are prisons? But essentially universities for criminals. I mean, you commit a crime, you go to prison. There's some other guy that's more experienced says, oh, well, you got caught, this is what you did wrong. Well, of course, you're there too. But, you know, maybe you can learn by his mistakes. Or he moved up in the world and got caught for a different kind of crime. Shuffling the newspaper. So what they're finding is that this hard line on crime is really filling up our prisons, and it's costing us more money in the long run. And this goes against the sensibilities of the right. They would think, oh, locking them up and not doing anything for them at all will save you money. Well, what happens in the long run is that our prisons are becoming filled up. And, you know, and part of that has to do with some of the drug laws, too. People that really are not criminals except for the law. It's not the same as stealing from somebody. I just look at it that way. Prostitutes, same thing, I say. And then this other story that I thought was really sad. Bear's long swim illustrates crisis. With Arctic sea ice shrinking, one female bear swims through open water for 9 days before reaching a flow, an ice flow. And here, I mean, it's just one bear, but when things are normal, when the ice, you know, they're saying, oh no, the ice cap is actually getting thicker, you hear from Rush Limbaugh and stuff. He's so full of it. None of these people on the right really care or know anything about science. I have to take care of something here. There. Really, okay? And, I mean, the majority of the actual scientists, you know, are telling us that the climate change is happening rapidly. We look back and I've heard the right, oh, the ice core samples prove that we've gone through climate change before. Yes, but you're leaving out the most important part, is that when you look at the change over the past thousands and thousands of years, the change is occurring at a much faster rate in the modern world. And it starts, when does this faster rate occur? At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, when we were burning coal and putting coal and smoke and CO2 into the atmosphere. And yet they deny that. And a funny thing is, I've heard some right-wingers say, oh, well, the polar bears are losing their ice flows, but they'll adapt. This is coming from the same people that don't believe in evolution. And on top of that, they don't understand how evolution works. It takes a very, very long time for an animal to evolve enough to adapt to a changed environment. That's why the dinosaurs went extinct, okay? Because the change in the environment happened too quickly. I mean, you know, I feel stupid explaining this to people. It's like, What happened in your school? You know, didn't you take earth science? Didn't you take any of these basic science classes? You know, where, you know, you roll a ball down a ramp, you know, it's kinetic energy, and, you know, you mix baking soda and vinegar together and you get a reaction to create CO2. Anyway, I probably wasn't in the best of moods for this Fez night, but I woke up to some weird shit that's going on. I even cussed more than once on this Fez night. So anyway, all right, well, thank you for watching the Lone Fez. All right, everybody have a great week. Cheers.